Yo, what's up YouTube? Today I'm going to be explaining how you play the most broken Hoggy Q deck in the game. With the tips and tricks I will give you in this video, you will get significantly better at Hoggy Q and actually understand the game better so that you aren't stuck in the middle of games wondering what the hell you should do. The gameplay is the best it can get as we're watching the top 2 Hoggy Q players in the world, and honestly, the level of skill displayed throughout this video is just ridiculous. The matchups we're going to be covering are Mortar Rocket Cycle, Minor Poison, Log Bait, Mortar Bait, Goblin Giant Sparky, and Balloon Cycle with Nado. I really want you guys to learn as much as possible from this video, so pay attention and let's get into the breakdown. So in this first matchup against Mortar Cycle, you can see that Mohammed cycles his hog as soon as the opponent goes for his mortar, and I guess that's tip number 1, is that when your opponent goes for their mortar at the bridge, try and be aggressive opposite lane with your hog riders. You don't really want to be using your hog riders to kill the mortars unless they go for a mortar in the same lane that you're going in. Obviously, tip number 2, I guess, is go opposite lane, right? You need to try and apply as much pressure as possible in the opposite lane so that they can't cycle Rocket. So at this point, Mohammed already knows what his opponent's deck is. He knows that last card is Rocket. And so actually here, the opponent goes for an Evo Mortar at the bridge, and this is a really instructive tip. If you play a Hog Rider in the inside tile of the bridge, you can actually catch and distract a Mortar in the opposite lane, as you just saw. If you played it in any other tile, that wouldn't have happened. Here, you might be wondering, why is he not going for like a furnace at the bridge or something? Actually, the reason why he's being so passive is because the opponent had his login cycle and he was very susceptible to prediction. So if he went for like skeletons right at the bridge and then went for like a furnace, the opponent could just log back the furnace and it would kind of die. See, because he used his Earthquake on the Evo Furnace, the opponent now punishes him correctly with a Mortar at the bridge, gets quite a bit of damage, and this Evo Furnace is kind of useless. Goes for a Hog opposite lane, and that's kind of an instructive moment because really, in this game, as the Hog player, you want to be cycling as many Hogs and Earthquakes as possible. In other matchups, you want to be cycling Firecrackers or Furnaces or Cannons. In this specific matchup, it's all about how much pressure you can add because your opponent is going to do just what we just saw. And if you think about it, how can you cycle the most Hogs and Earthquakes as possible? Well, first you go for your Mighty Miner for 3-card cycle, and then you go for your Hogs. You can see he also played his Furnace just so that he keeps getting this endless chain of just Fire Spirits spawning. So here, look, the Fire Spirits go and kill the Archers. Now he's back to another Hog because he had 3-card cycle. Unfortunately, you can see the opponent quickly cycles, and the opponent also has an extremely fast cycle. You know, 1 Elixir Skeletons, 1 Elixir Ice Spirit, 2 Elixir Log and Berserker. So he can kind of keep up with our 3-card cycle. But, you know, we got to do what we got to do. So we just keep cycling here. Another Furnace, Mighty Miner in front to protect it. We just need to keep that pressure. It's all about how much pressure can you keep. Beautiful Evo Cannon just gets rid of the Archers so that he can go for a Hog, and the opponent is forced to go for his Mortar down low. I want to point out another thing. You notice that he keeps Earthquaking the King Tower. That's another really important point, because if you're the Mortar player in this matchup, you want to be Nadoing basically every single Hog Rider to your King Tower. And if you keep Earthquake cycling the King Tower, well, eventually he's not going to be able to do that. It's very normal if you just saw the opponent just rocketed the Evo Furnace. It's a very normal thing to do because the Evo Furnace is just so annoying to deal with. The opponent goes for a crazy prediction. I mean, if that worked, Mohammed would have just lost the game on the spot. So actually not a bad 50-50. Distracted the Evo Mortar perfectly, and now it's just, see, he's just applying pressure. He's got his tank for his Mighty Miner, just applied so much pressure, and the thing is, he would have actually broken through here. This really sucks. That one Evo Archer managed to stay alive and just destroy the Hog. So you can see he's in a really bad position at this point. There's 1 minute remaining, and he's down over 1,000 damage. This should be wraps. Like, you're going to see the crazy end to this game, but he has one last chance. He has one chance to get a Mighty Miner down for 3-card cycle, goes for his Hog in the back so he can cycle as many Hogs as possible, but that gives his opponent so much rocket value. Like, holy crap. This is the crazy moment. He goes for a Hog Rider, and that Mighty Miner just survives and like keeps the Hog in place so that it gets a hit on the tower, and that one Larry now gets a hit on the tower. That one Larry hit and Hog hit has put him back in the game. Now he's got Earthquake. The opponent knows, oh shit, now I got a Rocket. Tries applying pressure. He's still up 300, but now instant Evo Furnace, Mighty Miner at the bridge, just goes crazy aggressive. See that Rocket? Bro, you don't have Elixir to be cycling that Rocket. It goes in, Evo Furnace is just applying pressure, Hog, the Furnace is on the tower. Nah, this end is ridiculous, man. How is he winning this matchup when he was down 1100? I'll never know. Like, insanely well played game. Continuing on the madness, we have a game by WL Dam as he completely humiliates this Miner Poison player. The opponent just used his Mighty Miner as it crosses the bridge, and one thing to pay attention to, especially in single elixir where you can punish this more, is that because he knows his opponent is playing Miner Poison, he knows that the Mighty Miner is the only tank his opponent has. And that's an important thing to mention, because if you support your support troops, which in this case is your Furnace, they're actually going to have a very difficult time dealing with it. They're going to have to just drop stuff on top of it, which you can then predict. So he goes for this E-Spirit, predicting like minions or something, and so the opponent is forced to go minions and waste the Evo Wall, well, he won Evo Wall Breaker connected, but he had to basically elixir dump at the bridge just to kill that push, and that's really good because now he's messed up the opponent's cycle. Beautiful kite on the minions, by the way. And now look, he has this Evo Furnace. He had 3-card cycle that whole time with the Mighty Miner, so now he's already back to another hog. Goes for a hog. The opponent has his Evo Cannon, so he doesn't overcommit, doesn't go in too much, but he does get a Fire Spirit and a Evo Furnace connection. So really, really nice start to the game. Now entering that second phase of the game where it's double elixir and you want to be abusing 3-card cycle as much as possible. The opponent spams the other lane, just trying to be as aggressive as possible and trying to punish Dam, and you can see how he defends this. He went for a Furnace up high, and so the Fire Spirit from a Furnace plus E-Spirit will fully kill the minions. The opponent goes for a Cannon up high to kill the Mighty Miner, but that then allows Dam to just Earthquake it and get a hog on the tower. Unfortunately, minions plus the log, he doesn't get any actual hog damage on the tower, but that whole time he had 3-card cycle, and that allows him to make this play. Right, he goes for skeletons first, then he goes for E-Spirit, hog at the bridge, and he goes prediction Earthquake up high. And you can see how that's not hitting the tower. And the reason he went for that is because he knows the opponent has to play his cannon somewhere in the middle, and so he just drops an Earthquake so that regardless, even if they cannon trick, no matter what, that hog is going to get to the tower, as it just did. So really, really nice play by him. Skeletons up high, he's just defending this Miner Poison push, and you can see, like, he logs the Mighty Miner so that it resets its chain, and there we go. So he goes for a cannon up high. He goes for that cannon up high so that his opponent can't go for their cannon up high when he goes for his Hog Rider. That's a really important interaction right there, is that a Fire Spirit plus a log will fully counter Evo Wall Breakers. Unfortunately, the poison and the log that fully kills the Evo Furnace, but the Evo Furnace more than did its job on defense. And you can see that now he has a chance to reset. He's got that 3-card cycle. He goes for a hog just to pull stuff back. You can see that was a really nice Hog Rider. The point of that hog was not really for anything other than just to pull everything back and let him defend really easily. He actually managed to get the cannon out of cycle as well. So he logs it, goes for a Evo Cannon, and then the opponent blocks the bridge. So the opponent also, that's another play from the opponent's side, is they're blocking the Mighty Miner from the bridge to make the Hog Rider go in front if he went for a Hog Rider. Opponent gets nice poison value, but if he's poisoning the Furnace up high, then he's not poisoning the tower, which is nice. Again, the opponent just gives them really nice value, and look at that E-Spirit. Oh my god, I love E-Spirit in this deck for those kind of plays. And that's basically GG's now. Look, he went for his, again, look at this, how he's playing his Furnace up high, outside of poison range. He's not giving his opponent any extra value that he doesn't need to give him. Right, just play it up high. And yeah, what a beautiful game, dude. Just destroyed him. Up next, we've got a crazy game against Hypno, and I mean, everybody knows Hypno at this point. I mean, he's got a deck named after him. It's this like hyper log bait cycle deck, and we're gonna see how you keep up, because our cycle is actually slower than his. He just spams so many log baits and just these bait cards in general in this matchup, and often it's really confusing to know what you should log. So this is really common. As you're seeing here, it's really common for you to get out-cycled in single, just to have a bad cycle. Here he logs the Dark Goblin, mainly just because the Dagger Duchess has run out of daggers, and he's trying to punish, kind of, or at least apply pressure. You can see how he's going with skeletons with his Furnace. He actually gets a Furnace hit. He knows the opponent's cycle, so that was really smart. He knew the opponent had the Goblin Gang in cycle, went for an E-Spirit to stun it. Fire Spirit jumped on all of the Goblins, and I mean, he managed to equalize the damage. Actually, he's in the lead by a couple hundred. He keeps up the pressure. Like, notice how once he's punished his cycle, he just keeps up the pressure. Didn't have cannon in cycle, didn't have elixir, was forced to go Goblin Barrel on defense. So, I mean, he's already throwing out the good game, but that was just a really good instance of knowing what your opponent's cards are and punishing appropriately, right? Opponent, I mean, he went into aggressive. I think the biggest thing in that defense was actually right at the start where he logged the Dark Goblin. I think a lot of players wouldn't have done that, thinking you just have to save it for the Goblin Barrel. My biggest tip in this matchup is do not save your log for the Goblin Barrel. You need to use it a mixture of offense and defense. In general, you want to use it, I would say, on offense when you think you're actually going to break through. So if by logging you can break through like you just did, then do it. And that kind of comes from experience, knowing your opponent has an overspent elixir, or maybe their cycle is bad. There are a few situations where it's appropriate. And also when you want to use it on defense. Okay, this was nice defense. E-Spirit is really clutch against Log Bait. It's kind of a big reason why top players use E-Spirit, at least partially. You can see here, uses that Mighty Miner ability, goes in, goes for an Earthquake. Does he get a hit? Does not get a hit, but even if he doesn't get a hit, he's still forcing out so much elixir by the opponent. Like, see, the opponent can't now support the Dark Goblin. He went for his skeletons low just in case there was any prediction by the opponent. That was really smart. Again, I think that's another thing to mention, that when you're playing against hyper bait decks or just any kind of log bait deck, you need to be really careful of them going like princess onto your skeletons if you're using your skeletons for any kind of defense. So especially if they're using a Dark Goblin, or even if you go for an Ice Spirit, right? If you go for an Ice Spirit and they prediction princess and the Dark Goblin gets a couple of hits, you're gonna get tons of damage. Okay, nice E-Spirit plus cannon. I think he only took one hit, so little interaction there. This is, you can see he logs again. That was a really nice log. He's just maintaining the pressure because he also knows he has Evo Cannon and Cycle. Furnace in this match, I made a YouTube short about this a while ago. You can actually fully counter a Goblin Barrel with a Furnace, but the timing is pretty crazy. Like, you have to be extremely fast. Like, even if you're hovering it, you still have to be fast. It's like that level of speed. And so usually people don't actually try pulling it off in games unless it's absolutely necessary. And in this matchup, you don't need it. EQ on defense, not really an advanced tip or anything, but plenty of players I see just forget that you can use your Earthquake on defense. Guys, this is something I'm going to make a video on in the future, but every card has multiple functions. Like, you don't just use a card for one function. You don't just use your Hog Rider to get to the tower. You can use it to kite stuff, for example. You don't just use your log to get rid of swarm troops. You can use it to push stuff. There's a lot of functions that cards have, and the top players know how to utilize all the different functions of the cards. It's something I'll make a video on later on, but you're seeing it perfectly displayed here. Goes opposite lane, prediction Earthquakes. To be honest, right from that start, at this level, he had already kind of won right from the start of the game. 2 hog hits is crazy. He's already won from the start of the game. He's just having really good defense. And I also want you to note how he's not being super passive. I mentioned this before in my previous matchups. If you go super defensive in this matchup, you're still just going to get overrun. If you start letting them... the toxicity, the BM. Yeah, if you go too passive and all you're doing is just trying to defend for 4 minutes, like let's say you got that big lead in the start and you're just chilling, I guarantee you'll lose. Like, you will just get overrun and eventually they'll just overwhelm you with the swarm. So yeah, GG's. Next game is against Kasadi, and he's playing Mortar Bait with a twist. He's got Mortar Bait, but he's running Lightning, and he's also got Evo Witch. If you guys are Hoggy Q players, you've played it at all, you'll know that Evo Witch is not a fun card to play against. It can be pretty difficult to deal with sometimes, so you're going to see a masterclass in just how you handle this matchup. The opponent also has Cannoneer, and Cannoneer to Hog Riders is really annoying because usually they just pull stuff to the middle and don't really get much damage. Look at that, again, little interaction, but you see how he waited to log? It pushed the... I mean, he didn't mean to push the Ice Wizard forward, but he delayed it so much that it hit the tower and also hit the Ice Wizard. Nice Fire Spirits from the Furnace, goes for a Mighty Miner on top of the cannon cart. Beautiful start so far. I mean, he's just cycling cards, nothing particularly special. But you can see how here he's kind of chilling. He does not go in, right? You don't go in, because if you go in, he has a Cannoneer, right? Unless you have something tanking for the Hog, which he doesn't. The Cannoneer plus a Witch, you're barely going to get any damage, you won't be able to defend. So Cannon, big thing, yep, you need to use your cannons against Skeleton Kings, often in basically all of these kinds of matchups. Nice Earthquake, just to chip away at the Mortar. And the Skeleton Barrel pops and unfortunately didn't have his E-Spirit or his log. So a bit of a miscalculation there. He takes damage, and that too is against a Mortar Bait Lightning version. So actually this is like kind of the worst start you could have. Definitely made a bit of a mistake there, wasting his E-Spirit, but you'll see how he corrects his mistakes. And the first thing you'll notice he does is he goes opposite lane. The second he starts to go, so if he went same lane, the opponent would just lightning. At this point, he doesn't actually know the opponent has lightning, but he can safely assume, given no spells have been played, that his opponent has a spell, most likely a big spell or at least arrows. So why give him any value? Go opposite lane, you have to go opposite lane. Especially when you've taken loads of damage. He goes Mighty Miner same lane. The reason he goes Mighty Miner same lane, you might be wondering what you just said, go opposite lane, is because if the opponent lightnings it, the Mighty Miner still survives with almost full HP, and then he'll just swap lanes with the Mighty Miner, right? Really nice defense. Cannon up high, hits absolutely everything. You see how he distracted everything? He's got a furnace as well. Logs the Goblin gang. Like crazy, like literally took no damage. I don't know how he does this like so cleanly. He takes no damage. Skeletons as well. You don't want to waste any fire spirits. Like fire spirits, like each one of them is like a fireball in the tower. So even there, he goes for skeletons to protect the fire spirit. Why not? Forces out an ice wizard that just dies. That's 3 elixir, that's gone. You see, so nice, dude. He went for a mighty mine in front of the furnace to bait the opponent to play out a witch because he thinks that he's tanking for the furnace, needs to play something. Gets the witch out, 5 elixir down, then changes lanes and applies so much pressure. Opponent, he just spent 5 elixir on a witch, then he now only has 5 elixir for a cannon cart. Gets tons of damage, and not only is he back in the game, he's in the lead. That's the kind of, you know, mind games you got to start playing. Beautiful defense, you know, it's just everything's spaced out. You can see that he's spacing everything out. Opponent now has to go same lane. The opponent is like has to cycle cards in the same lane, because if not, Dam's just going to go extremely aggressive same lane. I think usually at this point in the game when you have enough damage, he went for an Earthquake because he's hitting the tower and 2 support cards, so why not? It's a good Earthquake. And if the Mortar, you know, the opponent cycled a Mortar, it's not a big deal. So he got back to another Earthquake. If the opponent had an Evo Mortar, he would not have cycled his Earthquake. I can guarantee you that much. So, okay, he waits for the... Okay, look at that log timing, by the way. That's something that is ridiculous, actually. I know people are going to say that's glazing or something, but to actually get the log timing down, to log both, like the Evo barrel, not take any damage, is so difficult. I've tried it. I don't know how he does it. Like, I don't know how he does it, to be honest, but that's an interaction. Perfect timing. It's just perfect micros from these guys, man. It's crazy. Goes for his cannon up high so that if the opponent did go for like a prediction lightning, he still has time to play stuff. That's kind of why you always go for cannon up high against Skeleton King. You only go for it low if there's support troops that you also need to try and defend. He's managed, you see how he went for his Mighty Miner, and now he's already got 2 furnaces on the field. Log, see, that's what I said. Remember I had said log is used for more than just logging back troops? He used a log to reset basically the witch onto his E-Spirit. Like, I don't know, man. There's just so much to break down in this. It's just so clean. Now he's in the lead, still by about 100. Evo Furnace, he's just applying pressure. You want to play your Evo Furnace onto troops because every time, I mean, you guys know this, right? Every time it attacks, it spawns Fire Spirit. So if you just play it in the back, sometimes it's the right play, but most of the time if there's like a bridge battle, it's usually best just to play it at the bridge and just, you know, try your best to actually get as many Fire Spirits as possible. GG's. Jumping into this next game, we're in the middle of a game against Sparky, and you know, I like covering Sparky matchups a lot because it's always such a difficult matchup, but then I say that it's Hoggy Q's matchup and it's like almost 100 over Hoggy Q and people are like, what? How is it possible? Like, especially, okay, this matchup's a bit easier to understand why it's 100-0 because you literally have E-Spirit, which is just such a hack against Sparky. You know, you can always chain and reset it. So like Ice Spirit, it gets a bit more techy, it's a bit more difficult, but here you can see this defense is it's just picture perfect, right? Goes for his furnace, goes for it in the inside, right? Because minions, that's a small interaction, but it made such a big difference. Is he went for his furnace on the inside because the minions are fast troops, right? So the minions, they play on the outside. It's just going to beeline straight to the furnace and kill it because the furnace will be distracted on something else. Also, because and this is another big thing, the opponent doesn't have a big spell. You would never do that if the opponent had a big spell because it'd be too much lightning or fireball value or something. But since he doesn't, in that instance, it was fine to make that play. Goes for this in the back and he goes for his Mighty Miner. That's the big thing in this matchup, is that you just want to use Mighty Miner. It can fully counter Sparky pushes pretty much. So think about it in that way. The opponent knows that your way of defending their entire pushes with taking no damage is just by going Mighty Miner. So they have to go for Zap plus Rage plus something to try and get rid of that Mighty Miner. You can use it to your advantage by often going opposite lane or by prediction, like knowing that they have to do that and making a counterplay. It could be, example, like, you know, going for really aggressive opposite lane right as you know they're going to go for Rage plus Zap, for instance. Nice, he went for his Evo Cannon, didn't quite hit the minions, a little mistime there, but I mean, he was trying to be a prediction, right? Goes for log, my internet cuts out because my internet is garbage. And there, goes for pops Mighty Miner ability, goes in aggressive. See, once you've defended, and if you have a Mighty Miner alive, you can usually just get some damage. Sometimes, if they're up elixir, and this is kind of comes from experience, if you know you've spent too much elixir on defense, you don't cycle your hogs, right? It's the fastest way to lose is just by cycling your hogs. It's safer just not to. If you need the damage, you have to, but often you can just fully defend this matchup. You see, this differs to the other matchup, the Hyper Bait matchup where I said you can't defend. This is a matchup where you can literally just defend an Earthquake cycle because it's really hard to break through. And I mentioned this ages ago, but this is like a way of knowing whether you should defend or attack. In the matchups where it's really hard to break through, like if you think about it logically, if you can't break through, then the only way of you guaranteed breaking through is with spells. So you might as well just defend and use spells. In matchups where it's easy to break through, then you don't have to worry about your Hog Rider getting to the tower, and you can focus as well on defense, but you don't need to spell cycle. And finally, we've got this game against Loon Cycle, but it's not like a normal Loon Cycle deck. It's one with Executioner and Tornado, or Evo Executioner. It's actually a surprisingly, shockingly difficult matchup to beat, just because Evo Executioner fully counters any push you can ever make, and then they also have Tornado. So actually being able to balance getting damage and then also defending, because, you know, when they have Nado plus their spells, it can get really difficult. So, okay, opponent goes for a balloon at the bridge. His cycle is scuffed as hell. That's the only reason he'd go for this, but this is the biggest tip I'd give you against balloon decks, is remembering that against balloon, I mean, get a hit. Against balloon decks, you remember to use that Mighty Miner bomb. As a last resort, it is actually a good way of defending balloon pushes. In any deck, even lava loon pushes, you often use it. You know, you can use it to get rid of the pups. Beautiful, look at that. He knew the opponent had to play something for the Mighty Miner, predicted it, went opposite lane. You know? I mean, okay, he didn't get tons of damage, but it was a nice play. It's a nice thought. You can think about the reasoning behind the plays, is that he knows the opponent has to play something. And so if they do, they have to waste elixir on the right lane. Look, he just gets a free furnace. The knight was useless, and now he gets counter push. He keeps spawning fire spirits, and either he gets damage. See, the opponent wasted 2 elixir on a card that's just spawning out of a card he played basically for free. You know, skeletons as well, wasted. So you can see he didn't get any damage. He got no damage, but he's messing up the opponent's cycle so badly, and he's also wasting the opponent's elixir at the same time. This is the, you see, the high level gameplay that these players are able to do, you know. With that extra elixir now, he gets a free Earthquake. Why is the Earthquake cycling? Well, you can see the opponent's deck it's very difficult for him to be able to really break through without overcommitting. He can get to the tower. If he outcycles the Nado, he can. But the problem is, the opponent can just go for like skeletons to defend, especially now that he has King Tower, and he's just going to take so much damage. Like, he's just going to lose to a balloon push. Because the thing is, usually with balloon pushes, you have to overspend on defense, because you go for a furnace, and they're just going to go for a miner directly on the furnace, and then how do you defend? Right, you have no more air cards. That's why you can see it's just a balancing game about trying to mess up their cycle. That's actually the biggest thing about trying to win these matchups, and why it's probably one of the highest skill matchups to try and win. So here gets an Evo Furnace. He just leaves that on the left lane just to try and get damage, and this is the problem, right? This Evo Executioner is it's basically like another tornado. It just fully counters your pushes, and there's pretty much nothing you can do about it. There's no like special trick you can do to reset it, nothing like that. Uses his Mighty Miner ability just to deal with both the Evo Knight and then also now the Mighty Miner. Gets a Furnace down low, plus just good defense, right? He's also switching up his Furnace placements. Goes for a Hog. I think I mentioned this earlier. Actually, I didn't mention it earlier, but notice how he keeps Earthquaking the King Tower as well, because he knows the opponent's going to keep Nadoing. That's a huge thing. Look at the King Tower. I mean, it only has less than 3,000 HP, which is, you know, you've got to keep that in mind. If he keeps tornadoing to the King Tower, well, he's going to have problems. Nice Mighty Miner. He now has to deal with this push. Goes for Skeletons. You can see he's really trying to mitigate as much Miner chip damage, because actually the way the opponent wins this is by chip damage. You're like wondering what kind of chip? Miner chip and balloon death damage chip is actually generally how the opponent wins this matchup. So since the opponent goes for a balloon in the back, he goes for a cannon that will at least pull it. So you know the opponent's going to try and get another balloon down, which is why you don't want to get your cannon outcycled, because you need your cannon. Look, here's your second balloon. Nice Mighty Miner. He's trying to cycle back to another cannon. Look, he got to it, right? It's really important when they go for a balloon in the back, you know that you also have to cycle your cannons. Like literally, yes, he takes death damage, but other than that, like really good defense, because it's really hard to actually take no damage against these balloon spam decks. Keeps Earthquaking the King Tower. You can see, look, Hog gets a hit on the tower. I mean, that's a 2200 HP King Tower, so got to keep that in mind, that the opponent can't keep Nado into King Tower forever. Goes again for his cannon plus Mighty Miner. Notice how he went for his cannon down low, because the opponent actually had his Executioner alive. If he went for up high, it's possible the opponent could have tried to DPS down that cannon before the balloon got to it, and then then the balloon's going straight to your tower and it's just a nightmare. Okay, this is really important. Look how he changes lanes. He's changing lanes purely to apply pressure. Applying pressure stops the opponent from going in, makes him waste elixir. Look, the opponent can't like support the Evo Executioner, then he can counter it for 5 elixir cards for 1 elixir with the skeletons, and also it just means that he can spell cycle, right? The opponent is trying to get as much damage as possible, you're trying to stop them from doing that, and by making them spend elixir on defense, they can't go on offense. That's why he went opposite lane. He's just EQ spell cycling. He's like really hard to get hogs to the tower in this matchup. EQ cycle. But he also has Mighty Miner on the field, so 3-card cycles going crazy. Literally by the skin of his teeth, he wins this matchup, but it was beautifully handled. Like literally from the start to finish, the way he just manages the opponent's elixir and cycle. Textbook. Honestly, textbook. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed. Like and sub. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.